my goal is to try to get people who can't understand where we're coming from, where you see what's going on in the world right now.
I panicked a little bit.
Hey man, it brings back the old days.
But
I was always ready to go.
anytime you show up to the party with this, it better be drinkable.
Yo, what's up, everybody out there? So this week, man, we got some new hotness for you, some new hot fire, some new freshness. We had a little something we decided we thought would be a good idea. So I'm going to introduce you to it for this the opening episode, and hopefully this is a reoccurring thing. Again, that's going to be dependent upon your feedback and how you guys feel about it. But you got three masculine men here who decided, hey, you know what, man? There's a lot of movies out there, a lot of things out there that women are specifically geared towards. This is kind of geared towards them and their demographic initially. So for us, man, we thought, you know what? There's a lot of that stuff that we typically kind of just avoid. You know what I mean? Not necessarily for any reason other than it just doesn't sound like our cup of tea, if you would, right?
Cup of whiskey.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. There you go. It's like Screwball. And we're like, yeah, I don't know about that, right? But with that said, we wanted to challenge ourselves. We wanted to be open-minded, kind of you can't really judge something that if you haven't dove into it and give it a shot. So us being the kind of people that we are, we decided that's something we're gonna do. So with that said, the new segment that we got coming to you guys, and this being the very first episode, is we're going to sit down, each of us on our own. We're gonna watch what would be classified as a chick flick.
Is that what it is? I don't think so.
I would definitely call these chick flicks. The first one.
No. I'm already looking at Troy Part 2.
Nah, man. I thought are we just gonna do everything?
I don't know how many chick flicks I can watch in a month.
4. That's how many. That's the requirement.
I thought we were doing a movie review.
Nah, man.
I want to review like
right.
Tenet. I want to review like some shit. Like,
sure.
Just in general.
Maybe we can sprinkle in one chick flick like per month. Yeah. And
That's what I was thinking.
You know what I don't like? You know what I don't like is the way that you guys made it look like I was the one. Like, oh my god, let's watch the chick flicks.
It's fine. You like chick flicks. It's fine.
We had a fucking decision.
Do you remember it being a chick flick?
I don't remember it being specific.
So I'm gonna ask you guys this then.
I remember
you two
the first one
very
being The
very
Notebook.
directly. Why did we watch the movie that we watched?
Because all three of us have never seen this one.
Well, there's a lot of movies. I've seen Tenet.
Yeah, but the easy one I think was The Notebook.
Yeah, because none of us had seen it.
So if you guys haven't picked up on it yet, the first movie we're going to be reviewing for your pleasure is going to be the
Boondock
Notebook.
Saints.
Oh, The Notebook.
I'm down to do Boondock Saints.
Hey,
That's
me
a
too.
fucking great movie.
Yeah, my uncle's.
And we can if we go our route.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
There was just a miscommunication.
And you know what I would say?
I don't think we ever agreed to a chick flick movie review
Not
segment.
specifically. No,
You know what
maybe
I
not.
like about it is this. It'll get Erica to have to watch movies that I want to watch
Hey,
too.
there you
You
go.
know what I mean? So I'm all for it.
It's research.
I'm like,
Watch
hey
more
man,
movies.
we got to watch this,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
need a female perspective on it.
Right, there you go.
So that I think, if nothing else, I think that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to ensure that we do get the female voice, the female perspective on things.
Right.
We'd like to engage everybody. You know what I
Be
mean?
more inclusive.
So we got a little bit of a movie review for you guys. And this particular week, what we did was watch The Notebook. And this one, by design, it's not an accident. None of us have seen The Notebook. We decided we'd watch The Notebook. This would be typically classified as a chick flick. However, we thought, you know what, man? Let's get the male perspective on it. Let's see what we think, and let's jump in. Boys?
So I'll start by saying, like Ken said, I've never seen it before. My wife has seen it before, and I feel like probably most people have, and definitely most women have. And so it has this kind of reputation or whatever of being like a very sad, like kind of tragic movie, a very romantic movie. And it was definitely that, I would say. But there are some things specific to, like, at least my perspective, and I feel like a lot of men and even you guys would relate. There are some things in that movie that I kind of felt were, a little cheesy, a little out of place, maybe. And maybe if we were watching it for the same reasons, that we would overlook it. But I'm just gonna say what I thought. So I don't know if there's any specific place that we should start, but I will say, like, I thought it was a good movie. Like, I wasn't mad at it. And
Well, I mean, and it doesn't hurt that you look like Ryan Gosling's brother.
oh, stop it.
So, you know what I mean? Let's make
Brian-
sure.
I'm Brian Gosling.
Yeah. B-Rye.
Yeah. I mean, so if you've never seen The Notebook, so if you're like us who have never seen it,
I think primarily for me, and then Crystal never saw it before we watched it.
Oh, okay.
So I think a lot of times people hype a movie up.
Yeah.
And what I talked about before is like trends, things that I don't want to jump into. Unless I know it's going to be a good movie, I like the cast, and you tell me, oh, you have to watch this. I don't have to if it's not the genre of movie that I'm going to like.
Yeah,
so The Notebook definitely fell into that. It came out in 2004. It came out in 2004. I wasn't even graduated high school yet.
Yeah,
I wasn't. Being oldest here, I still hadn't.
So I wasn't like, well, I was not going to watch a chick flick in 2004. I think I was still a virgin back then. So
Oh wow,
a little too much.
No.
But I don't think it was a movie that I was looking to watch, even though it was like a hit. It was a hit.
Yeah.
It was a hit. So as we got into this movie, I will say that now that I watch it, the very first thing I tried to pay attention to was the cinematography. I wanted to see how they framed up shots. I wanted to see how they kind of moved through it. I wanted to see the storyline. And I will say initially, one of the things that really stood out to me was it was like in the first couple of minutes, he sees Rachel McAdams' character, Allie, at the fair. There's like a fair going on.
Yeah.
He sees her. Of course, he's like, oh, I got to talk to her.
Right.
Of course, typical romantic movie. She's not interested.
No.
He climbs up the Ferris wheel. He jumps, like he goes up the Ferris wheel and he starts hanging there.
Yeah.
Kind of begging her for a date.
Right.
And right then and there.
She's with another dude.
And she's with another dude.
Yeah.
But right then and there, I was like, oh, this is going to be this cheesy.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't happen ever.
No.
And this is 1940s.
Right.
So right from that point, I was like, oh, okay. Because up to that point, I was like looking at it for like, again, cinematography. I was like, okay, cool. Rachel McAdams, hot as hell, right? I think she's hot. Better than Katherine Heigl. I'll just say that, Ken. But right then and there, that scene was the first one that was the cheesiest to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Where I was like,
it set the expectation.
Yeah, I'm like, holy shit.
And then she like undoes his pants while he's hanging there. And then he threatens like, oh, I'll fall if you won't go on a date with me.
You know how dangerous that is?
Which in today's times.
Yeah.
If you're coming off as suicidal on the meeting,
it's
probably not going to none,
anywhere.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, nah, it's probably not going to work.
It's not cute in 2021.
No.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in this movie that happen there that I don't think are practical at all, and I think in fact would be a turnoff.
Oh, for sure.
But we'll get into that as we get there.
Yeah.
But to James's point, so he goes, that's his first
encounter,
kind of valiant effort to kind of win her over, right? And big shock, it kind of works, right? Like maybe not immediately, but it kind of works. She damn sure remembered the guy,
right.
Anyway, so those two, you know what I mean? They kind of he runs into her again in town. They kind of hit it off. And then they fall like fucking head over heels, that's fairly typical, right? You first start dating someone, so I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
Summer fling.
Yeah, right. And then what's uncovered is that she comes from a very wealthy family. They're very well off, especially for this time period. They're probably some of the richest people around. He, not so much. I believe the exact amount he made an hour was 40 cents an hour.
Which is where I resonated with him a lot.
Yeah, same.
I'm like,
right?
oh,
which
okay.
So for me, that's kind of was like, okay, so now you got this guy, all the odds are against him, right? Like he's poor, he's not from her world or anything.
Yeah.
However, she's into him. And I thought, okay, in real life, I mean, you're fun.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to marry you. You know, I don't have a family with you. You're poor, dude. You know what I mean? And
that's the conflict, right? Like that's what sets up the whole storyline, and that's why you end up rooting for for that to happen. So
tale as old as time.
Yeah,
when I saw like the story develop, I was like, oh, tale as old as time.
Yeah, you think like Titanic,
kid
like
from the wrong side.
Yeah,
Titanic.
Yeah.
Kid from the wrong side of the
Great
tracks.
Gatsby.
Yeah,
Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Kid from the wrong side of the tracks with the rich other half. He can't compete. He has no future. His biggest goal is to buy that plantation and turn it into something. He knows he's not going anywhere.
Right.
His literal goal is to not go anywhere and get what he wanted out of life, which was in the town.
Right.
Which I think when you put that into perspective for like common day, if I said, oh, I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to fix it up, like that could be a low expectation if your woman comes from mansions.
Right.
She lives in LA and she goes to like fancy parties. That's low bar.
Yeah.
Well, for us though, I mean, like for someone that comes from our background, I think that's I mean, to own a home and you know what I mean, and things like that. Right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Just fucking. I mean, that's enough said. You know,
okay,
anyway.
okay. I want to fix my apartment up.
Yeah,
you know,
there you go.
Yeah.
that'd be more like it.
Right.
you know?
But I think that's why it's so compelling, right? Like it's relatable in
Well,
that
exactly.
aspect. And like you have the, like I said, the conflict there. It doesn't matter that all those things are against him. Like she's into him and that's what she cares about, and you have like the outside pressure from the parents. And like that's another thing that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. So, that's where the conflict is. And I think that's why it's so compelling and why you root for them. It's like you can relate.
Agreed. I absolutely agree. I
Yeah.
think, like you said, it's something that's relatable, right? And also, I think what kind of rings true anyway is even in the movie, I think her name is Allie. Allie is kind of going through and explaining like, hey, her days are pretty booked up, right? Like she has dance and she has fucking piano and she has
Latin and French.
Latin and everything. That's her day. Whereas him, he doesn't have any of that, right? He doesn't have the same expectations put on him.
Right.
So he's allowed to have a little more fun.
Yeah.
And now he represents fun to her.
Right.
Which that's something I think that kind of explains itself,
Yeah,
right? In the sense of, hey, she's not used to that. He offers that. So the odds are stacked against that, right? Like, it's not sustainable typically.
No.
And I think so even later on in the movie, I think Allie's father kind of even tells the mother, like, nah, it's a summer
It's a
fling.
summer
You know what I
fling.
mean? Don't
Let
worry
them
about
do
it.
their thing.
Yeah, let her have fun, but it ain't gonna go nowhere.
Yeah.
And in movies, talk about Grease or fucking Great Gatsby or any of the ones we just mentioned. In the movie, it does,
Yeah.
right? In real life, it should probably burn out on the dude. Anyway, so again, he keeps showing her the fun side of things, right?
Yeah.
And he's very honest. But something that I thought was important in the movie was that he was very genuine with her, with how he felt about her, what she was doing, and very upfront about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so basically, summer ends. They end up breaking up. She kind of loses her shit too.
Yeah.
Right?
That she does.
Well, I will just say this, so the people listening along can follow the plot a little bit. They're hanging out. It's like a week left before she goes back home. She's visiting for the summer, so she's there. They're about to lose their virginity, or at least she's about to lose her virginity. I don't know, but that's what it is. The cops are called. The parents call the cops because it's like 2 a.m.
2 a.m.
She's not home, so they call the cops. They rush home to her house, and the dad and mom talk to her. The mom's furious. She's like, hey, this fucking guy is no good. And the thing that was fucked up, the most fucked up part of the movie to me was the dad's like, no, go ahead, have a seat. So he sits down in the living room, and the mom is in there, and all he could hear is like, this guy is trash. He's trash.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, I kind of been there before. Like like the parents don't like you.
Yeah.
So it's like, that was fucked up because that right there was a huge symbolism for like the differences between the two groups and how the odds, that was the odds, right?
Yeah.
It was like the life that they wanted for her and the life that she was kind of living during that summer.
Yeah.
And that's when they ended up breaking up.
Right. So he hears all of that going on in the other room. They're not far from him. And there was no attempt to keep it discreet either.
Right. No.
So after being berated with these comments for a while, he decides he's going to walk outside.
Yeah.
He's going to go home. The girl Allie is really adamant with her parents. Like, no, you're wrong. She even points out to her mother and her father, hey, to basically calling out her mom. You don't look at my dad the way that I look at him. You don't enjoy him the same way. I think the mom told her, like, you don't know what love is, and she said, you don't know what love is, you know. And she at this point she has a point, right? And we don't know that yet. But however, she's kind of really pointing that out.
Yeah.
She chases down Noah, which is the main character, it's Ryan Gosling's character. She goes outside, and at this point, I think he's trying to do the noble thing. Yeah. He's looking at it from a big perspective and everything and saying, hey.
He's giving her an out.
Yeah, basically, like, hey, you know what? I heard all of that.
Yeah.
They have a point. I will never probably amount to what they're saying. Like, the odds are against him anyway, and he doesn't have the ambition to do so. That's not what he's trying to do. Right. He has dreams for himself that don't align with what they would have wanted to do, aspire.
But
to.
I think
go ahead.
I was just saying he cares about her enough, to like give her that out and be like, like you said, he sees the big picture. He understands that that's what the parents are pressuring, and so he's trying to give her a chance, at that life that her parents want for her.
Yeah.
And he does it, like I said, like selflessly because he cares about her and he wants what's best for her,
Right.
even if it doesn't include him.
Absolutely.
But she's not. She, as we find out, she doesn't want that necessarily.
Right.
And I don't think he was giving her an out.
No.
I think he was coming from a place of hurt.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, he wasn't unhappy with where he was.
No.
Even when he gave him the amount that he made at that lunch, he wasn't ashamed about it. He was like, I don't make much. And they're like, well, how much? He's like 40 cents.
Yeah.
And he says,
and I think that
covers what I want to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he even says, I don't need. It's
I don't
not
need
much,
much.
but I don't need that.
yeah, I saved most of it.
Mhm.
So I don't think he was coming from a place of giving her an out. I think he was hurt. And I think what he wanted was for her to, and she was trying, but at the same time, there's difficulties there because they're young.
Yeah.
I don't think he was like trying to give her like what was best for her because I think he loved her.
Yeah.
But I think he was saying that so that maybe she wouldn't like question, because he said it and she questioned like, are you breaking up with me? It wasn't like, I think he was hurt of the things he heard. That's why he walked out of the house.
Oh, right.
He didn't wait till the conversation was done. He was walking out like fuck, like what the fuck?
Yeah.
So to me, he was coming from a place of hurt, and he maybe wanted to like put her in a tough spot, like to be like, we'll see where this goes. Because when the conversation ended, he was like, well, we'll just see.
Yeah.
When you leave, we'll just figure it out then. Because she was like, come to New York with me. He was like, we'll just see what happens.
To be fair, too, and he had just found out a little bit prior to that she was going to be leaving and going to New York.
Oh yeah, she hadn't even told him at that
Like,
point. He heard it from someone else, or from her mom actually.
Right, and he had thoughts that she would stay in town and go to school in town and things like that.
She was going to Carolina.
Charleston.
Charleston,
which was like an hour away.
Right.
However, she had already decided she was going to go to New York, which was obviously not suitable. And then she offers him, "Why don't you come with me?" But again, we all understand by this time that that's not really his world, right? Like he's not going to do that.
Yeah, he has his his life planned out, and maybe not like planned out, I should say, but he knows what to expect.
His words were, "What am I going to do there?"
Yeah,
right?
Then he goes to New York.
Well,
when before he went to the war, they went to go work construction on
no, they went to Atlanta.
Was it Atlanta?
Yeah,
Atlanta.
it was a different big city,
Yeah, they
but
went to
yeah,
Atlanta.
Yeah. So I mean, but like he was. But my point is, he was willing to leave the hometown. I thought it was New York because it was 1940s.
That's true.
Well, I mean, and then looking at
that.
it too, though. But see, he knew what he was doing when he left. He had a job lined up, right? That's where he was going.
Him and his buddy,
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, he wasn't going for
he
her.
wasn't just going like, hey, I don't
Yeah.
know. He was going for work. He understood like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
So anyway, so him and his friend moved to Atlanta to go work for a while. She moves to New York. She's doing her thing there. Noah ultimately ends up going to the army, which at this time is probably a common thing to do if you don't know what you're really going to do.
Well, yeah, World War II.
World War II.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, so probably got drafted then.
Probably, yeah.
So, even maybe a little deeper. And there's about 30 seconds of the
Of
clip
war
of what
clips.
happens
Yeah.
when they go to war.
It was so frustrating. It's like, why even include that segment of the movie?
Yeah, it was basically to write out his friend.
Yeah, and it felt so rushed and so like cheesy. Like his friend was in the snow with just his arms and his legs sticking out. There was no blood or anything. You're like, did he die or is he asleep?
Let me point this out. So they're like him and his whole like platoon, I suppose. Forgive me if I'm incorrect about the correct army terminology, but him and his whole group.
Yeah.
They're walking up some fucking path, and out of nowhere, like literally, it seemed like out of fucking nowhere, these planes appear,
Right.
and just start dropping bombs on them. And it's like they're low flying planes,
Major bombs.
They're
too.
extremely loud.
You didn't hear 'em coming?
and then nobody
Yeah.
noticed it until they were right there. And
There's
then,
about-
they're like just walking in line to fucking run into the bomb.
There's about 20 bombs in 30 seconds.
Yeah, dude.
Like what the fuck?
And then the aftermath of that is that
His
the
buddy
main
dies.
character's friend is dead.
Also, which was weird, they were walking together. They were both right next to each other, and then all of a sudden,
One
somehow
blew
he
up.
was like many yards away.
yeah,
like,
one's dead, and he's
Yeah.
running back to find him, and it's like, well, how the fuck did that happen?
Right,
You know what I mean?
It just felt so rushed, and it like felt cheesy, and I feel like it cheapened the movie a little bit.
Yeah, to that perspective, especially with somebody like it wasn't a main character, but it was a good supporting character initially in the movie. In the beginning of the movie, right?
That's his road dog.
I was
Yeah, that
sad.
was his
Yeah, I
boy.
was sad that he died.
Yeah.
I just felt like they didn't really do him justice by that
Agreed.
scene.
Not even like a last word.
No, nothing.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
no,
It's
like
kinda
just
like
was
died.
just
no, he's asleep now.
yeah, yeah.
Next scene.
You won't see him again.
Yeah,
He
next
couldn't
scene.
even close his eyes. Or
No,
Yeah,
nothing.
It was that. It was the end.
It just
and then
felt
that was
so
it.
rushed.
And so his friend's dead. He comes home from the army. He's, and back then he's just walking and walks back to his house. Don't know how he got there, but whatever.
Yeah.
Walks up. His dad's waiting on the porch. His dad walks up to him and is like, "Hey, man, I sold the house. Here's a check for everything they gave me for the house. You could go buy that plantation house that you wanted."
Yeah.
And rebuild it, which is part of what he had promised Allie in the beginning. Hey,
Right.
I'm going to do this. And she goes, well, I want to have some say in it. She tells him, I want it to be a white house with a porch that wraps around the entire house and blue shutters.
Yeah.
I felt, and also too, like I felt like that was an important scene in the movie when he asked her. He's like, "Do you want to say in it?" Because it was more than just the house, right? It was like, "Do you want to say in it?" As in, like, "Do you want to say in our future together?"
Exactly, right. And I think as a guy, I think sometimes I find myself doing that. I find myself I'll ask a question because I'm like, are you implying that this is something we're going to do together?
Right.
And it's down the road, or how are you getting into this?
Yeah.
And I do want to back up just a moment here because there was a part that we overlooked. We discussed about when she was a virgin and all of that. However, while they're in this house, they went to that plantation house. It was
that late night.
It was it was that late night, the 2 a.m. one. I guess this plantation house was abandoned at the time.
Yeah.
Which looked haunted to me.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it definitely did.
And
The music, the soundtrack just dictated how romantic.
And the piano was out of tune.
Yeah, and apparently, so he took her there to deflower her, right? And then they're about to do it. They're like, and it was one of the oddest undressing scenes you've ever seen, right? It's just like, I'll take off this. You take off that.
Yeah. Now your
I'll take
turn.
off this. And the camera's just back and forth.
Very awkward.
It was just very weird. And it was, but maybe that's kind of how it goes when you're new to the game anyway.
1940.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had the weirdest underwear on, man. Like,
his boxer shorts had buttons. I was like, what the hell?
And they went down to like his fucking knees,
Yeah.
dude.
Crystal was like, he's wearing swimming shorts?
Yeah, they look like chinos. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was weird. But then, okay, now that here they are, they're laying on the ground. They're about to do it. And then she stops and goes, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
And like, okay, maybe, fine, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so he's kind of stumbling over it because it's an odd question.
Yeah.
And then she keeps pushing it.
Yeah.
She just keeps on like, what are you thinking? Well, why aren't you thinking about this?
Right.
Well, I'm thinking about so much. Why aren't you talking?
She's
Can
like,
you
is
say
this
something?
what you planned on? You
Yeah.
know? Yeah. And I don't think that he necessarily planned to like have sex with her. But he even said it. He's like, yeah, I thought about it. He's like, but I don't think that was his main reason for bringing her there. But yeah, I think she was just nervous and, she was just like talking just to talk. But yeah, that was super frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of like that scene because the movie had been moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first 45 minutes are so quick
Yeah.
that I actually think it was good to understand where she was in life as in terms of like age and and
maturity,
like 40 and especially the time period.
Yeah.
I think it was important to like slow it down and show like, oh, she's fucking nervous as fuck right now.
Yeah.
She's nervous to the point of anxiety and
Right.
talking anxiously, right? And then you get the guy's perspective where she was like, did you think you were gonna do this? And he's like, no. And he's like, well, I mean, I think about it, but
Yeah.
and it's like you get a real innocent vibe from those two characters in that moment where it's like, of course he thinks about it.
It wasn't premeditated,
But she's
though.
totally not ready for it because before that scene, I had just assumed because of all the romantic
you
and fun
assumed
that
that
they
it
had
happened
that they
already.
already did it. But then it's like that scene right there told me like, oh, she's still a virgin.
It kind of brings
Right.
you back to understanding the time of the movie, right?
That's true,
What time in society that was.
Yeah.
Um,
Because that was a big deal to have like sex before marriage. Like,
right.
and,
Whereas,
Right.
whereas I mean, like today's time, it's like fucking. There's an app, you click a button and you fuck tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And a
yeah.
lot of people are into that.
You've been
Um,
clicking on some weird ads. That's why your computer's so slow.
Yeah.
I don't even have a computer. it's
Okay.
destroyed.
Are we following the timeline of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah.
it ties back into something later. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so I just wanted to bring up the point though, and I think what I wanted to say about that is just like, okay, and I do understand like being young and all of these things, and it kind of reminds you of being young. And I for myself, I remember one of the first girls I ever asked out, like, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" Her question to me immediately was like, "Why do you want to date me?" And I was baffled, like, I don't have an answer.
Yeah,
It's just such a simple question.
yeah,
And it was fair for her to ask, right?
Right.
And that's why I think the same there, and understanding that. But to James's point, it does kind of highlight it. But I was annoyed by it. I won't lie to you.
yeah.
I was annoyed in the sense of like, okay, I'm watching a movie, you know what I mean, and you know these kind of things, and I'm kind of like, you know, just shut up. Right? I don't know.
I think, to your point, I think it does illustrate like kind of a key difference between men and women. It's like, you know, there's a whole lot more that goes into it for women than it does for men. I think for men, a lot of times it's purely physical and maybe not like premeditated or thought out, whereas women are thinking about all the implications that come with it.
Right. And I think, you know, like I want to say, I think in the movie she even said like, you know, I wanted this to be perfect. You know what I mean? And I think for at least I'll speak for myself. I never really planned out like it has to be like all this. I just was like, I want to knock this out and get it over with. You know what I mean?
Box.
Yeah.
Right. I and as fucked up as that sounds, but yes, you know what I mean? Like that was kind of where you're looking at it
Right.
as. I didn't care. If you wanted fucking flowers, I'll go buy flowers.
Right,
Whatever.
right.
What do you need to do to get this done? You know what I mean?
Sound like a used car salesman. What's it gonna take to get you into this car today?
Right. And you know, today I look at that and think like, yeah, that's pretty shitty. You know what I mean? Like, it definitely, I think there's a lot more to it than that. Anyway, at least for myself, right? I speak for myself.
Yeah. But okay, then she, like you said, she moves away.
Yeah.
He goes to war. So they're separated. He writes her 365 letters, a letter a day for a year, because she left in a hurry and he never got to talk to her. She just left. So he wrote her for a whole year straight, and she never got the letters. She never got any of the letters.
Well, her mother, so he sent them all. She didn't get them because her mother, like again, we mentioned earlier, her mother was against it, right? Her mother didn't want. She, I want to say what the father's words were, he isn't suitable for you. And so you know they're against it. So she would go check the mail and she would take the letters out, and the daughter has no idea that they're even should be coming, so she's not expecting them.
Yeah.
So the mother she denies the letters from ever getting to her.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is the Allie she ends up meeting some other guy, as she volunteered to be a nurse for the war as well, which I mean when I watched it I thought like, oh fuck, are they gonna meet here? That's what's gonna happen.
Right.
It didn't. You know what I mean? She meets some other dude, some dude named Lamb. Yeah. And this was kind of corny to me, like in the sense of this, like, so he's all fucked up and he goes, yeah, you know, you want to go on a date with me? And she's like, no, dude, like, look, you're fucked up.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to like another scene and she's walking down the street with her homegirls and he's standing there next to his baller car because he's rich.
Well, she told him, she's like, let's get healthy first and then we'll talk about that date.
Right.
So then he gets healthy and then he's like, hey, what's up with that date?
And then he finds her. And I'm thinking this is like, I'm being honest with you guys. This is like 1940 or whatever, 1930s. And he finds her. Like, why did you pull that off?
Wealth.
Yeah, but even then.
It's a circle.
And also too that like, because what you touched on earlier about like the context about some things that might come across as like, you know, a little stalkerish. 365 letters, like that's kind of a little stalkerish. You know, assuming that like I think you had brought it up. It's like, you know, if you send someone a text message hi every day for 365 days, you're not going to come across as romantic. That's going to come across as like, you know,
you're like a stalker,
like creepy.
Right? Yeah.
And then kind of that too like falls in that same lines. Like he's just waiting for her outside, you know, next to his car.
Yeah. And also
and also too, like there was no context to like how much time had passed, so it was very abrupt and it seemed weird, and it kind of took me out of it. It's like, oh wait, no, he's better already, because when you see him first, he's all bruised up. He's in like
he's
a full body cast,
like a full cast.
And then all of a sudden he's fine. There's like not even any scars. You're like, you know, how much time has passed since then? So
right. But from that point, you learn he's wealthy. He comes from a wealthy family. He's educated. He's a good job even for himself. He's doing well. So then those two end up hooking up, are dating. You know what I mean? They're dating there and they hit it off. He's a good guy. She has fun with him.
And she falls in love with him too.
Yeah,
like, I think that's an important part of the movie. It wasn't just like, you know,
it wasn't
she
like
was
she just
settling.
moved on.
No, she wasn't settling. Like she actually genuinely loved him, I think, and I think that's an important part.
Well, I mean, their relationship in itself is a romantic thing.
Yeah, and it's its own thing, and because of that, like there was no fault of his either. His character Lon, it was like he never did anything wrong in the movie, you know.
Well, no. So anyway, so now those two, Lon and Allie, they end up They end up basically getting engaged.
Yeah, and this is 7 years later.
Yeah, and so for context of the time, we
Yes.
find out later in the movie that this was 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, you don't know how much time has gone by.
Right.
You know, at least a year, but that's
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right? But apparently
Yeah.
7. You know what I mean? So
7 years.
um,
7 years in a war later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so now she gets engaged to Lon. And they're gonna do something, and then Noah or
I think it's Lonnie.
well, whatever the fuck. No, they call him Lon. I don't know.
I don't remember. I think it was just Lon. But also too, like about the time thing, I think this is important as well. And another reason why I felt like it was rushed, it was like Noah's dad had died, and it just cut from one scene to like,
Yeah.
and when his dad died in November, it's like, what happened? You know,
He died quicker than his best friend.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Like,
you
what the
didn't even
fuck?
get to see
They
the
were
dad.
like, "Did you think that was fast?"
Yeah,
We'll keep watching.
Well, yeah, you just
Yeah.
wait. And like I get it, they're trying to just show that Noah didn't have anything left other than this house, you know, and that was like kind of a crazy obsession for him because in a way, and I think they even said it in so many words in the movie, it was like he thought that if he could get this house, then he would win her back somehow.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, to be fair, he had promised her the house,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
he's well, as they, and you know, something that we haven't mentioned at all that I think is very important is that the way that this is being told to us is by two elderly people, right?
Yeah,
There's a guy. There's you see the older gentleman reading to a older lady.
who has Alzheimer's.
He's reading her the book, yeah, and it becomes obvious that she has Alzheimer's, and he's reading this story to her.
Mhm.
So I think that's very
yeah,
essential.
yeah,
to
we
the
kind of
story.
skipped that part.
Alzheimer's?
Yeah.
Well, how do you say it?
Mhm.
It's Alzheimer's.
Well, okay, yeah, I just say Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Fair enough.
This isn't a critique of how I say things. Okay?
Well, I'm going to critique you. I know it's not, but I will.
Yeah, all right. You know, we could have brushed right over that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm just gonna bring up Janet Lopez, all right? Because you both called me out on that, so you
Exactly.
know that's what we're here
I
for.
get
Well,
this shit,
I
Keep
each
appreciate
other
that you do
honest.
it, and I'm gonna be honest with
I
you.
just don't want you to get
I'm not gonna change the way I
Alzheimer's
say it
later in life.
and then I'll be like, well, I never knew how to say it anyway.
Look at his file, Alzheimer's.
When he starts saying it correctly, that's when we'll know
Yeah,
he's got it.
he's got
Something's
it.
gone wrong.
The doctors talked to him.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's the key part of
Yeah.
the movie, right?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
there's a gentleman reading this to an older lady,
Mhm.
and it's what seems to be like they're in like a nursing home or some sort of
Yeah,
institution
retirement
like
home.
that,
Yeah,
something like that. That's very important, right? Anyway, so they're gonna get Allie and Lon are gonna get in. They're engaged. Allie comes back to the original town where the summer fling all went down. They never really describe why she came back, except
She
for
saw him in the paper.
Yeah, she saw him in the paper that he finished the house.
Yeah. She had just gotten fitted for her wedding dress.
okay.
She saw him in the newspaper
Mm-hmm.
and he was standing in front of his house.
Well, hold on. I thought initially, and you guys correct me if I missed something here, but initially she came back, and then her and Lon were there, and that's when that's how Noah saw him. He was on the bus. And was like, stop the bus. Where was that at?
They saw. He saw her in Charleston. He was there to get plans approved for the
Yeah,
house.
you're right. Yeah.
that's how he saw
that's
her.
what
originally.
that's when like, okay, now the wheels are turning again, right?
Like
Yeah.
he knows that she's still alive.
And then she decides, and he goes, and then he sees like, oh shit, she's with somebody else.
right.
He sees that through the window of the restaurant they're in.
And that drove him even deeper into the
Right.
craziness of building that house.
Right. So then, then she sees in the paper he's finished the house and all this. She decides, and she tells her fiance,
Yeah.
I got to go do some stuff. You know, like, and
doesn't
he's-
specify what.
Yeah, and you know what? And this guy seems like a decent dude. He's just like, okay, if you got to do something, and he even tells like, it's okay to get nervous and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, he just
And-
contributed to her being like getting cold feet maybe about the wedding or whatever.
But he didn't get on her case about it, nothing. And,
Yeah.
and he's just like, okay, if you got to go do
do
what
what
you got to do.
Yeah.
in 1940s.
Yeah. Well, fuck. It seems even to me, it seems more of a stretch for him to do it then than it would be now. I
Mhm.
think then it seemed like the masculine role was way more dominant, and like you don't do shit I don't tell you to do.
Yeah, he didn't really have that kind of dominant energy though.
Well, he
Yeah.
didn't, right? But I'm just saying in the time period,
Yeah,
it
no,
seems
you're
like
right.
it would have been a lot more.
But I think that just goes to show how
that.
good of a guy he is, which
Well,
makes
right.
that part of the story like even more compelling or whatever. Because it'd be easy to be like rooting for her if he was like a piece of shit.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
like
you
Titanic.
yeah, exactly. Like leave him, go for that guy. You know you're supposed to be with him. You know what I mean? But Lon never did anything wrong, and you were never rooting against him necessarily. But I think that's why the story was so
Or-
compelling.
Like Great Gatsby.
Yeah,
I
fair
just,
enough.
I can't
Yeah.
leave that alone.
You love Leo.
I literally was
You
comparing
love
it like,
Leo.
well, they're both
Like
Leo.
Tom, yeah.
All right?
Mhm.
But anyway, so she drives over to Noah's house, And I mean, and I think by this time in the movie, everyone's kind of like, you two, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You guys,
Back again.
right?
Uh-huh.
And yeah, a little bit of a fight ensues. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because she's a little offended. And a little bit back and forth.
No. It's not. There's no fight. What happens is she comes up. She's like, "Oh, I just wanted to make sure you're good."
You're right. You're right.
And then he's like, he didn't say shit.
Yeah,
and
he
then
didn't say anything
at
Just
all.
wrecks his fence.
Yeah.
You're right. My bad.
He didn't say anything at all.
Yeah.
She gets in her car. She's like, "I'm a dumb girl. I
Yeah,
shouldn't have came."
yeah.
She goes, crashes into his fence, and he's like, "You want to come in?"
Yeah.
He just walks up and says,
Finally,
"You
he
wanna come
starts
in?"
talking. He's like,
Right.
"You want to come in?"
Yeah, and then he asks like, "Oh, you know, you want dinner or whatever?" And
Yeah.
You see, this is where I thought they could have done a little play on like the history.
Mm.
I thought he was gonna make her breakfast for dinner,
Yeah, pancakes.
like the dad.
yeah.
I thought he was gonna be like, "You wanna
Mhm.
come in for some breakfast?"
Yeah, because
Mhm.
earlier in the movie she showed up to like, and that's when she, kind of learned more about him, and I think like really fell in love with him when he was like reading poetry, found out
Mhm.
why his dad made him read, and then the dad invited her in and made them pancakes and stuff. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I even said it out loud when I was watching it with
thought-
Smoking Hot Stephanie. I was like, yeah, they could have. He should have made her pancakes. I thought for sure that's what it was going
Yeah.
to be,
That's what I thought.
and then I was expecting him to be tearing it up with his hands,
I mean, it's only
like a
normal.
real man
Yeah.
from the 1940s.
Yeah.
So she comes in to hang out. At one point, I think while they're eating, if I'm not mistaken, he points out like, this is the room that everything, this
You
is
gave me
where
blue balls.
where you had a million questions to ask me,
And
right?
he like looked at the piano. He's like,
Yeah,
"Look at
and he
this."
says, "Yeah, look, there's the piano that you
Yeah.
were playing that night."
Mhm.
And I think that was a big moment for her
Oh,
too.
for
I think
sure.
it was like, "Oh shit!"
Bringing all those feelings back.
And I believe she left that night.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she went back to the
leaves.
hotel and talked
Yeah.
to Lon on the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she comes right back though.
Yeah.
And then when she comes back,
She
all
doesn't.
bets are off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now she's there. They engage.
got in the boat.
And,
Well, before that, they got in the boat.
Yeah, let's talk about the boat.
Yeah,
let's talk
yeah.
about the boat. Okay, so he says, "Hey,
With all
I
them
want to
chickens.
take you somewhere." Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And they get on a boat, and we have to leave now because it's supposed to rain.
Mm-hmm.
They get on this like rowboat, and he's rowing way the hell out there. Which, when he was depressed and all because she was gone, he was
Yeah.
going on these long boat journeys on by himself anyway.
Exercise. Yeah, he was
Right.
beating himself up.
Yeah, so this is that's how he was doing some stuff. So he
Yeah.
decides, hey, I'm gonna take you somewhere.
Mhm.
And then they pull up into this, like, I don't know what you'd call it, some little river where
It's like
there's
a
a bunch
still.
of trees.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then there's like 30 million ducks. Okay, dude, like, and they're just
No, and not even exaggerating.
yeah, no, like
Oh,
no,
there was a
I'm
ton of
being
them.
sincere here.
Yeah.
30 million ducks, and here they go rowing their boat through it, and the ducks aren't startled.
No.
They ain't worried at all.
Mhm.
And then he goes, "Do you want to feed them?" And then she's like, "Yeah." And then they start feeding the ducks, and they couldn't be calmer. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't know if you guys have ever seen ducks when you feed them.
Yeah.
They lose their shit.
Yeah,
Okay, they're
they
fighting
do.
over food.
Mhm.
No, not these ducks. These ducks were just like, no, man,
Real
it's cool.
docile.
Yeah.
We'll all get a turn. There's 30 million of us.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'll
know,
stand in line.
And also, he just pulled a bag of bread out of nowhere. Like he was like, "Oh, you want to feed him?
Yeah.
Well, here we go."
I'll keep some
It was
bread
like
under the
Wonder
bench.
Bread and shit.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know what's funny? I mean, at that point in the movie, that was cheesy as fuck because it was
Yeah.
almost like overkill in the duck.
Yeah.
If I was a director, I would have been like, too many ducks.
Yeah.
Like dial it back.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because it was romantic enough that they were out there and then they found that little water inlet where they can go
Yeah.
through. It's like
It was too much.
too many ducks. Like
Yeah,
calm
yeah.
the fuck down, these
Yeah.
ducks.
Yeah. I agree.
You don't hear one duck. You hear her
Yeah.
laughing as she's feeding them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
I'm like,
and not a quack,
Right.
Not one quack.
Yeah.
You know
Not
what
one
I'm
duck is
saying?
scared?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing. There was no duck activity, but they were all there.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Yeah, it's just another thing that kind of like takes you out of it.
So I mean, so that's us looking at it from a real,
Yeah.
fine tooth comb there, kind of
Right.
really.
Like
you
we
know
get,
what I mean?
but we get the idea behind it. Like it was meant to
Yeah.
be romantic, but
Well,
like
right.
like James said, it was just too much, and it was just another thing that was like, yeah, this is a cheesy like.
well, yeah. I
romantic
mean,
movie.
you could totally get past it,
Yeah.
but just simply it was something that
something
we
to point
noticed,
out,
right?
Yeah,
So anyway, so he's like, "Hey, it's gonna rain. We got to get out of here." So they start rolling back, and then it starts raining, and it
Mhm.
starts pouring.
yeah,
And what I thought, and this is like a part of the movie that I was like, that's cool. Like they
Mhm.
just start laughing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're soaking wet in the boat. They're trying to get back, and then they just realize like we're fucking soaked already, and it's a good time. They're laughing
Yeah.
together.
Well,
To-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to say to me that's kind of what I took as like that was the moment they were like, okay, you know what I mean? Like this is good.
Well, I think the reason why is because it kind of echoes back to the beginning of the movie when he like laid in the middle of the street. And I don't remember if you remember
Yeah,
that
yeah.
scene, but he was like, "Yeah, we just like to lay here, my dad and I sometimes, and we just watch the lights change." And then she goes, "Well, what happens if a car comes?" He goes, "Then we die." She goes, "What?"
Yeah.
You know. But then when a car does come and they get up and they have to run out of the street, she starts laughing uncontrollably then too. You know, and it's just because they're having fun together. And
Yeah, and it's just a symbol type of fun,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like it's not like you had to go out and do all of this stuff. It's
Right.
just us together being
Yeah.
caught in a situation.
Yeah.
It's a great memory. It's a great time, and then that's why I thought
Yeah.
that signified that
Right.
symbolized. Hey,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like those two together, even in what most people would consider a bad situation,
Yeah.
are gonna have a good time.
For sure. Yeah. And it's just like the tie back to that scene or whatever, like you
Right.
said, is what set it off, I think. So
Right.
Yeah, and just so everybody's aware, like we said earlier, throughout the whole movie, you have this elderly couple, and you have this man reading to this woman,
Yeah.
and he's pretty much reading the story of the movie, The Notebook. So throughout the whole thing, you have this narration going on. You have, and it's not crazy narration to where every scene's narrated. It's just certain
No,
parts of it.
it's like to start it off like in
Yeah.
the very beginning, and then it gets into the characters.
Yeah, and then they jump back into like the nursing home. So like at this point, you have him stopping the story and then understanding. Okay, she doesn't remember shit.
Right.
She doesn't even know who he is. Obviously, we know who they are.
Yeah.
But you have that happening. So you have them at that point, kind of falling back in love. She confronts him like, "What, you never wrote to me," and that's when he discloses to her like, "I've written to you. I wrote to you for a year straight."
Yeah.
And she was like blown away. So then they rekindle this love. This love is now rekindled.
Well,
They have sex.
well, she realized then, you know, the life that she thought what it was under false pretenses, right? Like she thought that he was done and just was like, because right before she leaves for the summer, she stops where he works at, and his friends
Finn,
like, get out of here. You know, he doesn't want you. Like, he understands he's not mad at you, but he doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's the last thing that she got.
Right.
Before then going off and being on her own. She didn't just jump into she spent some time alone and all that.
Yeah.
So she's looking at like the last 7 years were all built on a lie.
Yeah.
Because he had reached out for a year straight
Right.
and just never got the information,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And had she known, then it would
Right. Then things probably would have mapped out differently.
Also, just to touch on the narration point, is something that I thought was funny, and that Stephanie, like Smoking Hot Stephanie, called me out on. She's like, "This is you," like because she knew this scene was coming up. When they were narrating, this was after he saw her in Charleston or whatever the city was, and he was like, he got rip roaring drunk for 10 days and seriously contemplated burning the house down. And she like stopped and looked at me. She's like, "That's you." I was like, "All right, just call me out like that." She's like, "Yeah, you would have burned the house down." So I just thought it was funny. Like the narration part was like some of my favorite parts of the movie.
Well, you know, that just what you touched on there. Like I think a lot of people could probably relate to that mentality, right? It's like, because you know the underlying reason of why you did what you did. You put all this effort in for because you wanted that outcome, and now you've identified, like in your mind at that moment, it's
That's
never
not
gonna
gonna
happen. So that you view it as a total waste of your time.
Yeah.
And fuck this. All it symbolizes to you is wasted time now,
Right.
like for a desire that you never obtained.
Yeah, and when he was trying to sell the house, he always found a reason not to sell
Right.
it. And he pulled a shotgun on that one couple.
yeah, dude. Because they were crazy. Like,
Well,
if you want to pay
his,
that much,
over his asking price, he's like, he's not gonna have lunatics living in his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
What? Yeah. So what were we saying?
So they rekindled the love. They actually had sex, and this is why I wanted to bring it up here, because she made a statement after they had sex. She's like, "Why, I waited 7 years for that?" She's like, "Let's go again." And I talked to Smoking Hot Crystal. I was like, "What? How did you take that line?" Because for me, I was thinking, because it was short, it was very short.
Yeah,
And I was like, "Are you saying? Was it because it was short
like
that you
you're
said
disappointed,
that? Or is it because she's a virgin? She was waiting for marriage." And she's like, I think she was a virgin. And I was like, okay, that makes sense.
I didn't think about
Because
that.
she was like, let's run it back.
Yeah.
And I think that was her virginity. I think he still took her virginity.
Oh shit! I didn't even think about that.
Because she's like, I waited for this, like 7 years for this.
I when I watched it, I initially thought she was just saying like,
this sex was good.
not why. Yes, but I thought she was like, that's why she wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
But I also thought she was saying like, hey, I was supposed to do this with you 7 years ago,
Oh,
and I wanted you pretty much, obviously, this entire time. She wouldn't have been there if she didn't. I thought that, so I didn't take it as like she was saying like, hey, I haven't had sex at all. I thought she was, and I don't know, right?
Yeah,
we don't know,
and
but
I
I
think
just took it as like she was more like,
Yeah.
with you, this has been a 7-year period.
Right. It's and that's what it is, right? It's open for interpretation because we don't know if she had sex with Lon or anybody else, but in that time span or whatever. But I can see both sides of it, and yeah, I think it's.
It can go either way.
I think she was just happy she got digged down. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
After
yeah.
that, I thought she was a virgin. I thought, okay,
Yeah.
fuck, she
Yeah.
lost her virginity because back then, like you would wait for your husband.
And we
Right.
say it was short, but everything in the 30-second war scene, you know what I mean?
Right,
That was
Yeah, this
so,
movie has no context
that
of
was
time.
like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we never know. That.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like for the second they laid down, it was like probably 7 seconds.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Well, fuck yeah. That's,
Yeah.
that's like 2 hours in this
Yeah.
movie.
Right.
You know, so I
Oh, man.
after I asked that question, I thought either it was very good, so she wanted to run it back,
Yeah.
or
That was her
she-
virgin.
that was her virginity, and she waited 7 years because she almost had it 7 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And she waited, and now she got it. So I
Right.
took it like that.
Yeah.
But they end up having sex. So, and let's not go too far into that. But
we already have.
yeah, I know. We're so deep into this fucking episode right now. So we move a little bit more forward, right?
Right.
And now she has to make the decision on whether or not she's gonna go back to her old life, because what Noah's thinking is like, oh, I got you. I'm not losing you twice. And that was one of the things he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lose you again.
Yeah. Well, it was like I lost you once. I can maybe lose you again,
If it's
but
what you wanted.
only if I know that this is what you actually want.
Okay, what happened? What he says there? Well, first off, okay, so Lon ended up coming back into town. Allie's mom comes. Allie's mom, first off, is like, she basically tells her like, look, there's a lot more similarities between us than you think. She shows her some stuff. We don't need to get too deep into it. It's not important, but she shows her some stuff to make, I think, really open Allie's mind up to understanding, hey, what is it that I actually want? So then her and Noah, they kind of get into it a little bit because of she's very unsure of what she should do. She doesn't know,
What
right?
she can do, yeah.
She loves the dude that she's engaged to, but she knows, like, man, I really do love you too.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of torn. It's a tough situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So her and Noah get into it. They're kind of arguing. They're going a little bit back and forth. He tells her, like, this is what we do. You're what does he say exactly? Something like you're this 90% of the time.
Oh, he says 99% of the time you're a pain in the ass, and he's like, your attention span for that it's like
Yeah,
2 seconds.
Yeah, your emotional rebound. Yeah, yeah.
He's like, it's quick, and then you're back to the same pain in the ass shit.
Right.
He's like, I'm not afraid to tell you something that's
and
hard
then
to
she
tell
tells
you.
him about him as well. That's their
Yeah.
dynamic. And
But she's like, we fight. He's like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
but what I thought was very important in that was when he says, look, why don't you stop being worried about what everyone else wants?
Exactly.
Don't give a shit about what I want. Don't care about what your fiance wants. Don't care about what your parents want. What do you want?
Yeah.
You do what you want. And if you do that, then I'm fine with whatever you decide. But
Yeah.
you decided for you.
But I also felt like that was too fast of a gear. Like, to me, this whole movie was so fucking shifting gears so quick.
So rushed.
Because the whole fight ensued because he was trying to get her to see, like, no, you're not fucking you're not making the right decision. You're
Yeah.
leaving. You're really leaving. And then all of a sudden, the next argument he has is like, well, no, what do you want?
Yeah.
And I think it happened so goddamn quick. And I'm not saying that the integrity of the movie is based on this. I'm just saying things move so goddamn quick in this movie to where, no, a second ago you were about getting what you wanted.
Yeah.
And now it's, what do you want? And I think they put that in there because that plays to the character of being considerate and giving her, at that point, giving her the out.
Yeah.
Like, what
yeah.
do you want? If you
Right.
want to leave, I can handle it this time because it's something you want.
Right.
Well,
right.
I think this is where he gives her the out. It's
I
not the
think-
first time, it's this time.
In my opinion, I think that is life, though. I think life, especially when you have so much that you, especially from Noah's perspective, when you've invested all of this effort and all this time, you wrote 365 letters, you built a house to her specifications, you've done all that. You've basically devoted your time here for her, and then she comes back and you're doing all of this, and then emotions get heated. I think most people are very quick to, like, to get a little I guess greedy in the situation and get a little bit worried about themselves initially. And I think then once she sees she's getting mad and she's frustrated and she's crying and everything, I could see that being a realistic kind of argument perspective on it. And then now you're like, okay, fuck, you know what? Here's the reality of it. Because now you start to me at least, if I'm doing that, I see that it puts things in perspective for me. And I stop and I think, well, what do you want? Right. You know what I mean? Something like that. And so that's kind of the way but I get your point though, and it does kind of move very quickly. But I think in life, I think arguments move quickly, right? Like you're sitting there 1 minute, and next you're like, holy shit, here, how do we get here?
I feel like the arguing scenes were like some of the most realistic scenes in the movie. Like the most relatable, you know, and not that everybody argues the same way. Like, because for me, you know, in my relationships, we don't really argue like on the fly about stuff like that, you know, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I feel like it can be a good thing if you get those little things out of the way right then and there instead of waiting for shit to build up, you know, and explode into like a big fight. But definitely it seemed like, you know, those were some of the more realistic scenes in the movie because you can totally see it going down that way.
Well, I think those are the points of the movie where the shit slowed down. Yeah. Because like the first time when they're getting to know each other, it's like, oh god damn, this is like a great fucking relationship. Right. Then the narration comes and it's like they fought constantly. Yeah. And then you see a scene of them fighting constantly. Yeah. And you're like, oh shit, there's another side to them.
Yeah, now it's realistic.
Now it's realistic. And then, I mean, that happened. And I think that's the point in the movie where everything slowed down. Yeah. They got to do a little bit of acting, bouncing off each other, and it was good. They did a good job.
By the way, we talked about the cinematography a little earlier. I think the acting was definitely one of the strong suits of the movie. Never once did I get taken out of the story because of the acting. Like, the acting was always, the acting was solid in this movie.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that.
It was.
So anyway, Allie ends up she ends up leaving. She's a little torn between the two. She goes and like I said, her fiance's in town. She ends up talking to him and she tells him the truth, you know, basically this what's been going on. And so then for a second there, you're left a little bit. I think it flashes back to like the nursing home or whatever. Yeah. And then something to point out there is then so the gentleman reading, which we don't know who he is at this point, his family shows up. Yeah. And they're all there. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys immediately here. Like I looked and was like, oh yeah, for sure.
Because of the dark hair?
Well, no. I just knew the way that it was going. The way that the family was looking at them, I was like, oh yeah, they're together, and that's the mom.
Well, I mean, it was never a question.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I mean, I didn't know if they were together and they had a family and all of that, or if he was just like trying to care for her. I knew that they were the main characters, but I didn't know how their life had turned out.
But when the nurse brought them over or whatever, or she was like, "Oh, the kids are here," she's like his kids, not yours.
And that's the nurse says that, and so it did. But then looking at it, then the way like the daughter looked at him and was like, and then they take the mom away. And then the family's like, you know, like, okay, mom's gone.
Okay. Well, first of all, I will say the nurse the whole time was very considerate of their situation.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay. And so was Noah. He wasn't doing anything too crazy because he couldn't. Yeah. So he was just acting like he was just a friend, right? And the nurse was very good at keeping that, like, okay, we'll keep that going. Yeah. So the family came. He's like, no, his kids are here.
Yeah, not yours. Don't worry.
Right. Not yours. Don't worry.
And they took her away.
And no, they didn't take her away. She's like, well, I think I'm gonna go take my afternoon nap.
Yeah, you're right.
So she decides to get up and leave. She's like, it's nice to meet you guys.
Right.
She gets up. And then, I mean, at that point in the movie, it's for sure you already know that's her kids. Yeah. But I don't think there was ever a question. And now I'm saying that now in 2021. Yeah. In 2004, this might have been a cool twist for the first people who watched it early on. Yeah. Like they didn't know. Yeah. Like to your point, they didn't know if they ended up together or they had separate families. Yeah. And they rekindled after that, or in their elderly age, he came back for her.
And I'll say, like, just from my perspective, and maybe like it's just because I'm dumb, but like old Noah, they never say specifically, at least not that I remember, that his name was Noah. Right. And he has dark hair. And if you'll remember, like early on, Ryan Gosling had the blonde hair. So the whole time, for me at least, like I was like, this could be either of them. And like, you know, and like I said, maybe I missed something or whatever, but I was like, I thought maybe this could be Lon. And then even when he was like going through the scrapbook and looking at old pictures of them, he had dark hair.
Yeah, he did.
And so I was like, fuck, is this Lon or is this Noah?
A bit
you know? And so so I was like, maybe this is, and then and even the son or whatever had dark hair. I think one of the grandkids had dark hair.
Yeah.
I was like, and Lon, if you remember, had black hair.
Yeah.
So I was like, is this Lon the whole time or is this Noah? So I mean, I think it was a little confusing, and to your point, like, you know, especially when the movie was brand new, maybe that was part of it too. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so okay. So yeah, so that scene, so you find out they have kids. Ultimately Allie ends up, she tells Lon, whatever, they have their little talk about it. He's pretty amicable about the whole thing too. He doesn't lose his shit. He's no Tom Buchanan, you know what I mean? Doesn't go crazy.
He holds this shit together.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, you know, okay, you gotta do what you gotta do, basically.
The biggest point was like, he's like, I don't want to have to convince my fiance that
to be with me.
Right.
Yeah.
But he did make it clear, like, hey, but I do love you.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't care, I'm leaving anyway, and she goes back, and I thought it was funny, and Eric and I laughed when she pulls up, she's like, I'm here. And I was like, and that'd be enough for me too. And then we thought it was weird that he walked out to the balcony
Holding
with the blanket on, and then he comes downstairs and still has the blanket on, and I was like,
I thought that too. I was like,
put the fucking blanket down.
Cold.
Yeah, no, dude, it was like a sunny day. I was like, put the blanket down.
But
you weirdo.
I felt like it made the scene more powerful because he was that too, but also because like he was taking her in, right? So like when she came in and hugged him, he like wrapped her in the blanket, and I think that was kind of a symbol of like he's taking her in, and now they're together.
I got you, and I also thought too, because when the mother came, Allie was actually wearing that same blanket because she had no clothes on.
Yeah.
And she was all wrapped in that, so I thought like maybe he's like, oh, she
He's
was in this blanket, and you know what I mean? Yeah,
he was definitely depressed.
Yeah,
he woke up and just heard a car.
Yeah, for sure.
So he did that. I mean, obviously, so she stayed with him, and then it goes back to the nursing home.
Yeah.
So now we can pick up from there.
Yeah.
Right.
And for a moment, like they're having a romantic dinner now.
Yeah.
And so they're having a romantic dinner, and then he finishes the story. And then all of a sudden she remembers.
She says that was us.
Yeah, she's like, that's us. And then she's like, how long? Like
how long do we have?
He was like, he's like, you went away for a while and came back. She's like, well, how long do we have? He's like, last time it was about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then so they start dancing, and all of a sudden she forgets who he is in the middle.
Shit.
Yeah.
Her Alzheimer's kicks in.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's kicks in.
Uh-huh.
And then she flips out. They have to sedate her. They move her to another wing of the fucking nursing home. He ends up having a heart attack,
which he had before.
Yeah, he had 2 in 18 months.
Yeah.
He has a third heart attack. She's segregated to the secondary part of the facility where she's kind of like a crazy person.
Yeah, that's the
they
vibe
have
they
a bunch
gave
of
you.
wheelchair
Like,
women,
and she's just sitting there staring at nothing, like all alone. And I think it was a good symbolism to show, like, I mean, we get she's alone anyway, but it just shows like now that she doesn't remember anything. She's afraid of people.
She doesn't have Noah.
All alone,
Yeah.
right? And that was like, and when I forgot to mention, but when his kids came, they're like, "Why don't you just come home?"
Yeah, she doesn't remember.
And then he goes, like, "No, dude, this is my honey. This is where I live now.
Yeah.
She is my home."
Yeah.
And that was something I thought resonated with me when she said that. Hey, she's my home.
Yeah.
That's a huge statement.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I think that scene when she's in the wheelchair and in the room all by herself, or with the other people, but no one talking, they're all just staring at the floor.
Yeah.
I thought it showed like, her home is gone. Like she's out of place.
Real quick too, just to touch on it, because I feel like it added another depth of their like relationship is when he said like, last time it was only 5 minutes. It shows that this isn't the first time or the only time that it's been like this has been an ongoing thing. He's never given up on her. He's been constantly trying to get her back.
I took it as this is his daily routine.
Yeah,
like that's how I viewed it. Like every day,
51st dates.
like and that's I told Erica that I was like, oh, this movie's like 51st dates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And every day he's just trying, and he's gonna stay firm.
I think that he was trying every day. I don't think he got her back necessarily every day, because the way that when the doctor came in, and this too like just added another level. He was like, the science, blah blah blah, she's never coming back, and he's like, no, she'll be back. And I feel like he did get her back maybe a couple times. It definitely wasn't every day, but he was like, I'm never gonna stop trying. Like that was a mentality, and it just added another like level, like you understood even deeper like how much he cared.
He
for
was
her.
dedicated.
He never
sure.
stopped trying.
Right.
And here's what I wanted to bring this point up, because Smoking Hot Crystal was like the scrapbook when they went through the things. It's like the younger pictures look like the old dude.
Yeah,
it didn't look nothing like them too.
And that's why I was confused.
I was like, why? What the fuck is this? Like,
yeah.
like the younger pictures don't look like Noah and Allie. I'm like, what the fuck? So they kind of dropped the ball there a little bit. And the other thing that was uncharacteristic is like Noah was romantic, but in periods of time, like for that summer, and then he was real hung up on it for 7 years.
Yeah.
And then he, like, it was very clear, like they fought. They were very individualistic. They kind of just played off each other.
Yeah.
So for me, when I watched the way that the old man kind of just took care of her every day, what appeared to be every day, to me that wasn't characteristic.
Yeah.
But here's what tied it all together for me. He gets to the end of the notebook. It's her notebook.
Yeah, her writing.
She wrote it and said, read this to me and I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you tied it up.
Yeah.
Because this is not Noah. This is not what he would typically do.
Right.
But he would do this for you.
Right.
And it was her writing. She knew what she needed to be able to come back to her reality.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, cool. All my doubts about how far he would go on a daily basis. I knew he loved her.
Yeah.
But he didn't love her in every moment because obviously they pointed out the fighting and all that shit.
Yeah.
I don't think fighting symbolizes.
No.
I know what you're saying. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But for and this is why I'll say this. For the majority of the flashbacks, it was a very sweet old man.
Yeah.
Which wasn't Noah's character.
No.
Noah was a romantic. He loved her, but he wasn't a sweet man to her all the time.
Yeah.
He was sincere, right? Like,
yeah, but I'm talking about sweet in terms of like
No, I get what you're saying.
like a caretaker.
Yeah.
Like he was very like, oh, okay, well let's read your story, let's get you food.
Yeah.
That wasn't Noah to
But
me.
he became what she needed him to be. And if you'll remember, like in the beginning of the movie, when he was trying to first get her, he was like, I'll be whatever you want me to be. He's like, I can be smart, I can be this, I can be dumb. Like
like,
whatever
"You're
you
dumb."
need me to be, I'll be for you.
Yeah, that's a
and
good
I think
point.
that was like kind of like you said, like wrapped it all up. You know?
So it was not characteristic of him to be
Right.
just constantly taking care of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was everything else she needed, and he would be that.
Yeah.
So when I found out it was her notebook, it made way more sense to
Yeah.
me that he was that guy
For
in
sure.
his elderly ages.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that's and to your point, I think that when he did say like, no, this is my home now, because your mom, like, this is my home now.
Yeah.
I think that said volumes for who he was. But for the demonstration of the daily to even play the role, it was nice that it was her notebook. I think if it was his notebook, it wouldn't be the same thing to me.
Yeah. No,
it tied it up for me.
Yeah.
That was actually one of my favorite little
parts of it.
Parts of the movie that I'm like, okay, that is actually putting into perspective and characterizing this kind of scenario.
Right. Right. I agree.
So
so ultimately, what ends up happening is Noah, he's fine. He gets up, he goes, he sneaks in. The nurse actually lets him sneak into
the nurse was like
she's
one of
a
my
real
favorite.
one.
Yeah,
She
she's
was
one of my
fucking-
favorite.
yeah,
she's like,
she
I'm
was
gonna go
legit.
downstairs and get
She's like, I'm
coffee.
gonna get coffee.
Yeah.
I won't be back for a while,
Yeah.
so you shouldn't go in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so-
and the only part about that scene I didn't like, because I like she was a real one. I just don't think the viewers needed him to be like,
Oh, her coffee
Yeah,
cup's
check
still
her coffee.
full
Like
and warm.
we fucking got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I knew what was
we're
going
not dumb.
on.
Yeah.
We're not dumb.
Yeah.
I got it.
He was
already.
like,
yeah, she does have coffee.
like,
it wasn't a fast,
Oh.
and it wasn't even a fast scene in a movie where it's like,
yeah,
he
no,
looks at her mug.
Yeah.
He was like,
like he said, yeah,
and you see the gears turn, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh yeah, that's what
it's
she
like,
meant.
wait, she has coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, but
so
she's a
clearly,
real one.
so if
though.
you didn't know,
Yeah.
she was allowing him to go in there, right? Like
Yeah.
she didn't want to keep him apart.
Right.
He goes in there. He's talking to Allie, and now you know it's them, so that's become clear.
Yeah.
Talking to her, and she goes, can our love make miracles or something like that?
Yeah.
And she said, can our love like take us away together or
Yeah.
something along those lines?
Yeah.
And then he gets in bed with her. They're holding hands, and then the nurse comes in the morning, and you realize they have both passed away
Yeah.
while holding hands in bed together. And to me, I thought, okay, that's beautiful. I get it. However, I thought that's now that becomes your fairy tale. I thought the movie was very realistic in a depiction of what a relationship is.
Yeah.
Like we've mentioned multiple times, there's a lot of fights, there's a lot of tough times, a lot of tough situations.
Yeah.
Real shit happens. You have to be able to persevere through those.
Yeah.
And then to me, it became fairy tale-ish in the sense of now they both died together.
Yeah.
Because either or, if one of them go without the other one, you got a glimpse of what that looked like.
Yeah.
He's having heart attacks. He can't take it. She's sitting there all
Yeah.
alone and
Alzheimer's
like
out.
just fucking all
Yeah.
alone, doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
The best way to end that, to keep it in a happy perspective, was they go together.
Right.
And they did. And then that's the
And
end of the movie.
I agree with that. And in light of that, I would even say that like that's a happy ending. Whereas like most people played this out to be like a very sad movie. It's like, well, no, like all the stuff that happened in between, like for sure it could be sad, but that's just part of life. But at the end of it, like that's the best possible outcome.
There was no resentment on Noah's behalf of like feeling like I don't want to do like I thought they had to make that clear. And the home thing, I think made that clear to you.
Right.
He wants to be there.
Yeah.
And even though when she freaks out, oh, who are you? Get away from me and all of that. You see though, like in the moments, and that's what he lived for, was just that little glimpse of time
5 minutes
to get that, and then to go out like that. Like to your point, that was the happy ending that I mean, you'd kind of want to see.
Yeah, and those are the happy moments, right? Where like he gets her to come back.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like we talked about it before.
Yeah.
It's like to have one person, like for instance, you take the three of us. If one of us dies in our sleep, we'll be lucky.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Like, to be honest.
Yeah.
And in this, it's like both of them die together, super romantic, super
holding hands,
not like just super like unrealistic. Like you said, it took away from it. But to your point, it's not a sad ending.
No.
They were both at the end of the road,
and full life.
And it's good that they tied it up together.
Yeah.
You know what I think the biggest shame was? Is like that they couldn't wrap up the movie like 10, 15 minutes before they died together.
No, right.
Like I didn't need them to die.
When like the book ended, right?
Yes.
Read it,
and like she remembered him, and they start dancing.
You could have cut it then.
Yeah,
and that would have been so sweet.
Yeah, and you didn't need to know how they died.
I don't.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't need to know.
Yeah,
right.
It just added a level of sadness for a lot of people.
Yeah,
not for us because I think it was a preferential way to go.
Yeah,
but I think it was unnecessary. I thought it was over.
Yeah, I thought it could have been.
Once you realized it, I was like, "Oh, it's over."
Yeah,
and then I looked. It's like, "Oh no, there's 15 minutes left." I'm like, "What?
What could they do in the 15 minutes?"
Well, the dude had a heart attack.
Yeah,
and then I told Smoking Hot Crystal, I was like, "You know what? I know." She's like, "That's kind of crazy." I was like, "No, you know what's crazy? The fact that he walked into her room in the middle of the night and she was there,
and she knew
mentally
right
that
away.
was
and I was like, that's crazy."
And that's what I'm saying about like it becoming a fairy tale at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because now like the whole movie had been so realistic,
right?
And now you just dropped the ball in that aspect, right? I don't want to say it ruined the movie. I don't think it did, but I do think you took away from that perspective that hey, this is how life happens, because life is tough, right? Everyone goes through some hardships,
right?
Yeah, and this movie moved very fast. It was very fast.
And then the last 30 minutes kind of really drug out. Yeah. And then, you know what I mean? Because if you'd have cut it 15 minutes shorter, you'd have been fine.
Right.
But instead, like you said, I thought it was over.
But I think it kept with the theme of it being like a cheesy, like romantic movie. You know what I mean? I
feel
like
that's what I was gonna say.
It had to be there in the sense that like, you know, if you think about it, the people that make the movie, like obviously they want to tell the story.
They want to tug on them strings.
But they want to get you to feel things. You know what I mean? And they're like, how can we make people get like feel really sad but also happy at the same time? Like
you get Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. And you know what you do? You do like a Johnny Cash situation where it's like, oh well, Allie passed in the winter of 2000. Not 2000. 1972.
Whatever it was. Yeah.
And Noah passed 2 months later.
Right.
You know, like you just kind of phase it out. Like you kind of just.
I mean, you had the narration anyway,
and most people are fine with that kind of ending. Where one goes shortly after, the other couldn't live without him.
You know what? I'm gonna raise this. I'm gonna say that's the male perspective because we are fine with it, right? Like the movies that are typically related to us, if fucking people die, and you're like, yeah, fucking kill them. You know
well, I mean, they did a good job too because that's immediately when I saw them, like, oh, they're dead.
Yeah. Me too.
I was like, they're dead.
As soon as she was the kid to take us away, I was like, no, and here's the end. They're gonna die. You know what I mean?
They're dead.
Yeah, but maybe that's us. We're like, yeah, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're just gonna die.
You're out.
But somebody asked me this and they were like, hey, does it upset you as a man that she was engaged to this other dude and was doing all these things? They had this whole life plan, and then Noah comes back in the picture, and then she goes in and she sleeps with him. Is that upsetting? Does that kind of condone the message of it's okay to go out and if maybe you had an old fling and kind of rekindle that fling? And I personally thought, I don't think that's at all the message in the movie. No. I don't think that's what it was saying. I think obviously there's a lot more involved than just, hey, I want to go hook up with this guy. I don't think she went over there with this straight intent to do so.
Right.
I do think she wanted to see him, maybe get some closure on the matter, and then all of the other things that came revealed at that point. Like, no, I never. Like I said, there was a lot of time. I think that she lived 7 years not having all the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one thing this movie did do very well is I haven't heard tramp in a while. The word tramp.
Yeah.
And then
She
her mom was
said, "I'm a
talking.
tramp?"
She's like, "Well, I'm a tramp now."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I got to talk to him. I got to talk to Lon and see what he wants to do."
Yeah.
And here's what I think this movie did very well of. It maybe it's a time period, but maybe not. But I think it did very well in not judging any characters.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you did not judge the parents of Allie, even though they were very uppity when it came to money.
Yeah.
You didn't blame them for wanting her to marry a rich guy. You didn't blame Lonnie or Lon for being the new guy.
Right.
You didn't blame her for going and sleeping with Noah.
Yeah.
You didn't blame Noah for pushing it a little bit. You didn't blame anybody for anything. In the whole movie, there was no blame. So I don't think that, to your point, I don't think anybody necessarily looked at it like, is she doing wrong?
Right.
I think you just let these things happen in front of you.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but this movie, I had no reservation as in terms of like what she should or shouldn't have done.
Well,
in this
again,
Right.
I think it's very realistic. I think you're faced with decisions like this, and life happens, right?
Yeah.
Life happens every day.
Yeah.
I know myself, I've been in predicaments where I was like, well, like, okay, I want that, I can't have that, so I'm doing this. Oh, fuck, now I have a shot at that. Where in all different facets of life, and then maybe you go back over there, and maybe that didn't work, and you know what I mean. Just it's very realistic.
Yeah, I would say that, like, you definitely, to your point, James, you understand everyone's intentions, and you kind of are rooting for everyone, and you're rooting for every possible outcome. Because even if she had ended up going with Lon, it's like you'd probably be disappointed, I guess, but you couldn't really fault.
You wouldn't think there was no villain in the movie, right? And there was no even the mother who was talking all the shit later on reveals like, hey, I need to make it clear to you, I was in your shoes at one point,
Right.
and here's the reality of that,
For
right?
sure.
So I mean, it kind of closed all those loops, you know what I mean?
And they did that very well, I would say too.
From the point that her and Noah split that summer, the whole time I think everybody was okay with whatever scenario brought them back together.
Right.
Would be fine.
Right.
And it happened that way.
Yeah.
So-
and they ended up dying together. So
that brings the question: what do you think about the movie? You like it? Good movie? Would you? This is how I'm going to ask this. Let's do it this way. Would you recommend the movie to a friend?
Personally, I wouldn't.
Okay.
No.
This is a no for James. Travis?
I would. I mean, it was cheesy, and but also with those kinds of movies, that's kind of the expectation. I think like you expect a level of that at least, and I mean, they overdid it in some parts, but overall, I feel like it wasn't so far out that you would like have any reservations. If I was going to recommend it, and be like, listen, it's a romantic.
Take it for what it is.
It is what it is. As long as that's what you're expecting, that's what you're going to get. So,
and I feel like I want to give you the opportunity to elaborate on your no.
Yeah, well, I just feel like there's some flaws in the actual speed of the story.
Yeah,
to
for
where
sure.
if you blink or if like you're not paying attention, next thing you know,
You're lost.
Like you're kind of lost,
Mhm.
and I just don't think it doesn't hook you enough as far as like having an opinion on any part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It just the movie's happening in front of you.
Yeah.
So I think it's missing some of those kind of climax plots where like unless you have that history to back it,
Mhm.
you're not really no character really resonates with me to where it's kind of just happening in front of me. So
Yeah.
it's not and to say that it's not a bad movie at all.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a bad movie. I think cinematography is good. I think acting is good.
Mhm.
I just think story is a little too quick and it's a little unrealistic. But
For sure.
if you like romantic movies, you probably dig it.
Yeah.
So
Okay. And for me, I'm gonna say I would recommend it. But I would recommend it like a kind of from Travis's perspective, in a sense of with a disclaimer. You know what I mean? Like, hey, so I would recommend it like this. Hey, if you with your girl, you want to watch a movie, this is something you guys could both probably enjoy. I thought there was features that each, from wherever you're sitting in, you can find something that you enjoy from it.
Richard McAdams.
Yeah, I will say I don't
Ryan
think it was
Gosling, I'm just gonna say.
Smoking Hot Rachel.
Travis's
saying.
brother. Yeah, and so like I said, I watched this movie with Erica, and I think we both enjoyed it. It was definitely a talking point. You know what I mean? There's things that we could discuss about it. It wasn't like I was watching it like, God, I wish this shit would end.
Right.
And I don't think she wasn't like, oh God, they're just fucking shooting people left and right. You know what I mean? So. And the last thing I wanted to say about this movie was, if I'm a bird, then you're a bird too.
We're all birds.
Yeah, we're all birds, dude. All right, man, guys. Again, thank you guys for listening to our movie review. That was The Notebook. Let us know what you think. First episode, we're gonna dial it in there. It's a work in progress, like everything.
Oh yeah.
But thank you guys again. And I show this to your girl. You guys watch it together. Or show it to your man. You guys watch it together. Leave joint comments. Both of you leave a comment. That's 2 times the comments.
That's right.
Yeah, it'd be fun if you guys can just follow along.
Yeah.
We release these episodes. You guys can go watch the movie and then come back and comment on it. Let us know what you guys think. What points we hit.
What did we miss? Like, what perspective do you have that maybe we didn't touch on?
Right. And if you'd like to suggest another movie for us to watch.
Yeah.
And can I just say I want to see Rachel McAdams in more movies. What happened to her?
She was in Wedding Crashers, and I think that was pretty much it. Like I don't remember seeing her in a whole lot.
Like I wouldn't mind. I gotta say it.
I like the other girl in Wedding Crashers.
He said more movies, less clothes.
I'm gonna find you.
All right, guys. Until next time.
All right, thanks, man.